Here's the problem with close-up and macro shots. You can't get the whole of a small subject sharp from front to back. Even with a small lens aperture, I can't get the whole of this toy gondola sharp. That's where focus stacking comes in. After I've used this technique, my toy gondola is now sharp right from its prow to its stern. Hello, I'm Rod Lawton, and this is a video for amateur photographer on focus stacking in Adobe Photoshop. In regular photography, shallow depth of field is often a valuable creative effect. Portrait photographers use it to blur backgrounds but keep their subject sharp, for example. But in macro and close-up photography, depth of field can be a problem simply because you can't get enough of it. At very close focusing distances, the depth of field becomes progressively more shallow, so it becomes difficult to keep the full 3D shape of an object sharp, even at a small lens aperture. You can focus on the front, you can focus on the back, but you can't get them both sharp at the same time. I've got this little tourist trinket I picked up on a trip to Venice, which I want to photograph against a suitably authentic Venetian backdrop. The trouble is that with our 85mm lens and the angle of the toy gondola, there's no way to get it sharp from its prow to its stern, even with a small lens aperture. This is where I need to use my EOS R8's focus bracketing mode. This is just the first part of the process, capturing a whole sequence of images at slightly different focus points. Many cameras can do focus bracketing automatically. Once it's set up, you press the shutter release and the camera captures the whole sequence. The next step is to merge these images into one, and this is where focus stacking comes in. While some cameras can do this for you too, the results will generally be better if you merge your focus brackets in software. For example, here's my image merged in camera. You can see there are some rather odd ghosting effects around the figure of the gondolier and some other parts of the picture. Now, Photoshop does have a photo merge feature for merging HDR images and panoramic shots, but where's its focus stacking option? Photoshop can do focus stacking extremely well, but it's a separate process and you have to know where to look. So let's start from Lightroom, where I select my sequence of focus bracketed images. I can look through these individually to make sure that I've covered the full range of focus distances I need for the boat. And sure enough, no single image has enough depth of field on its own. These were shot at f8, but at f11 or even f16 it wouldn't help much. What I need to do now is select all the images I want to use for focus stacking. Then right click and choose Photo, Edit in, Open as Layers in Photoshop. You'll notice I haven't selected the whole sequence. I've deliberately stopped where the focus is on the stern of the boat and not included further shots where the background becomes sharper. This keeps some background blur. By the way, you can also open a set of photos for focus stacking in Photoshop from Adobe Bridge. After a few moments, you'll see that all the images are indeed opened in Photoshop in a single document, but as multiple layers. You can see these in the layers palette. The next job is to get all these images aligned. I did shoot the whole sequence on a tripod, so there shouldn't be any variation between the frames, right? In fact, there may be, thanks to a phenomenon called focus breathing. Focus breathing is where the magnification of the subject changes slightly as you shift the focus. You don't notice it in regular stills photography because you take one shot at a time. But it's a real issue in video if you try to carry out any kind of creative pull of focus effect. Focus breathing does have an effect on focus stacking because as you shift the focus from the front of the object to the back, the magnification may change slightly as you do it. If you look carefully at my images one by one as the focus shifts from the front of the boat to the stern, you'll see that the out of focus background changes slightly in scale. Some lenses exhibit more focus breathing than others. Luckily, Photoshop's Auto Align Layers command seems to fix it. If I use the Edit Auto Align Layers command, I will get this dialog. I can leave the projection set to auto and just click OK. There is a second step. Now all the layers are aligned, I use the Edit Auto Blend Layers command to blend them together. Very cleverly, Photoshop isolates the sharpest areas in each layer to create a composite image where every part of our subject is sharp. The option I want in this dialog is Stack Images. I can leave the seamless tones and colours and content aware boxes checked. You'll see that Photoshop now creates a new composite layer where the whole subject is sharp from front to back. Underneath this, in the layers palette, you'll see all the original image layers but now with masks applied so that you only see the sharpest areas in each. In theory, you can use these masked layers to retouch any errors or glitches in the merging process, but be warned, this is a complicated business. Fortunately, Photoshop is so good at focus stacking cleanly that I don't need it here. If your focus stacked image looks good, you don't need all these layers, and if you keep them, you will end up with a huge Photoshop file. Focus stacking in Photoshop is so straightforward anyway that it doesn't take long to repeat the process. So here I'll just save my merged photo as a regular JPEG image. So if you have been wondering how to do focus stacking in Photoshop or whether it's possible at all, now you know. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching and see you next time.